After Caesar's death, the conspirators believed they could fill the resulting power vacuum and restore the Senate's authority. Yet the assassination of Caesar, beloved by the common people, only intensified public hatred toward the conspirators. Meanwhile, other figures stood ready to step into Caesar's place. One such person was Mark Antony, a former ally of Caesar who was popular with both the masses and the army. Another was Gaius Octavius, named by Caesar as his legal heir. And there was Marcus Lepidus, who enjoyed substantial backing from the military. These shifting alliances propelled the Roman Republic toward another civil war. In response, Caesar's heirs united to confront the conspirators. Antony and Octavian set aside their differences and, along with Lepidus, legally divided the Republic among themselves. Gaul went to Antony, Spain fell to Lepidus, and Octavian took Sicily and Africa. At that time, the eastern territories of the Republic were under the control of the conspirators. The Republicans, led by Brutus and Cassius, had established themselves in Macedonia and were building their forces to face Caesar's heirs. They decided to seek aid from the Parthian Empire, with whom they had favorable relations. When Quintus Labienus, the Republican envoy, arrived at the court of King Orodes II, the Parthian ruler granted them 5,000 light cavalry. Back in Italy, once Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus had joined forces, they ruthlessly purged their political enemies in Rome. Their next step was to devise a plan to crush the conspirators. Lepidus was to remain in Italy with his troops to keep Pompey's sons, who resided in Sicily, under control. Mark Antony and Octavian would march out to confront the conspirators directly. In 42 BC, the combined forces of Antony and Octavian set out from Italy to challenge Brutus and Cassius. In September of that year, the two armies finally met near the city of Philippi. The Republican forces occupied a fortified position, shielded by mountains to the north and swampland to the south. Their supply lines ran smoothly, and they had dug in effectively. Brutus and Cassius split command of the army evenly, with each general leading his share of the troops independently. They fielded 85,000 infantry, 17 legions, and 20,000 cavalry, of whom 5,000 were Parthian light cavalry, a total strength of around 105,000 men. On the other side, Antony and Octavian were compelled to fight due to severe supply shortages. Their troops naturally faced a weaker position, given that the Republicans held the high ground. Like their opponents, Antony and Octavian divided their forces equally between themselves, each leading his share independently. Altogether, Caesar's heirs had roughly 108,000 soldiers, 95,000 infantry, 19 legions, and 13,000 cavalry. With both sides combined, nearly 200,000 men stood ready for battle, an immense number for that period. Neither faction had ever commanded forces on such a vast scale, prompting them to split their armies into two self-contained divisions to manage the chaos of combat more effectively. In September of 42 BC, Mark Antony arrived at the battlefield ahead of Octavian to confront the Republicans. During the first skirmishes, the Parthian light cavalry took the lead. Utilizing their hit-and-run tactics, they inflicted significant damage on the Roman vanguard and light infantry units. Burdened by their supply problems, Antony and Octavian had no choice but to launch an offensive. Antony aimed to outmaneuver Brutus and Cassius by ordering his men into the marshes, hoping to threaten the Republican supply lines from the flank. But Cassius noticed Antony's movements and dispatched a force to fortify the swamps in response. On October 3rd, To divert Cassius's attention away from his march maneuvers, Antony moved his troops closer to Cassius's lines. Tensions between the two armies rose sharply. Inexperienced officers and soldiers on both sides, acting without direct orders, clashed with enemy detachments. Within moments, the entire army on each side joined the fray, igniting a full-scale battle. On the opposite wing, Octavian, who was in poor health, struggled to command effectively. He faced Brutus, who had arranged his legions in extended lines. When the battle flared unexpectedly, some of Brutus's soldiers managed to encircle Octavian's right flank, causing panic in Octavian's ranks. His men fled, and Brutus ordered a pursuit. But once his troops reached Octavian's camp, they stopped chasing the retreating foe and set about plundering the camp. Despite his illness, Octavian narrowly escaped, surviving to fight another day. Meanwhile, on the far side of the battlefield, a contingent of Antony's troops managed to skirt through the marshes and emerge behind Cassius's lines. When Cassius's soldiers realized this, they assumed they were completely surrounded and that Brutus's forces had been defeated, prompting them to withdraw. With 200,000 men clashing on the field, a thick cloud of dust and debris made it impossible for Cassius's men to see that, on the other wing, their allies had actually prevailed, and that the detachment cutting them off from behind was surprisingly small. Cassius tried to reorganize his forces and push back, but to no avail. In the meantime, Brutus, accompanied by a small cavalry unit, hurried to aid Cassius. Mistaking them for enemy riders, Cassius ordered one of his officers to take his life. When Brutus finally reached his fallen comrade and realized what had happened, he was overcome with grief. He referred to Cassius as the last true Roman and ordered his body buried with honor. This is how the First Battle of Philippi drew to a close. Though casualties on both sides were minimal, Cassius's death was a devastating blow to the Republicans. Now Brutus, who possessed limited military experience, was left to command 100,000 troops on his own. Nevertheless, he still occupied a strong defensive position and chose to remain there, hoping his opponents would make a misstep. Antony persisted in his attempts to outflank the conspirators through the marshes. Surprisingly, whether due to inexperience or ignorance, Brutus withdrew the very soldiers whom Cassius had stationed to guard the boggy terrain. Seizing this opening, Antony and Octavian advanced their troops onto Brutus's right wing, taking up a more favorable position that threatened Brutus's supply lines. Meanwhile, the possibility of reinforcements arriving for Caesar's heirs forced Brutus's hand. On October 23rd, Brutus ordered a full-scale attack, igniting the Second Battle of Philippi. Both armies locked shields and fought fiercely for an extended period. Due to the inexperience of many soldiers, neither side employed any sophisticated tactics. Eventually, Brutus's troops gave way and began to retreat. With a small band of close companions, Brutus fled to a nearby mountain, where he spent a few days feasting and drinking before ultimately taking his own life. Thus, Caesar's heirs emerged victorious in the Roman Civil War. In the wake of their triumph at Philippi, Antony and Octavian once again divided the Roman Republic between themselves. This time, Gaul and Spain fell to Octavian. Antony took control of the eastern provinces, and Africa was granted to Lepidus. Assuming authority over the east, Mark Antony traveled to Asia Minor to levy taxes from its cities and villages. There, he met Cleopatra, the pharaoh of Egypt, and fell passionately in love. Enamored of Cleopatra, Antony neglected his duties as a Roman statesman, following her to Egypt and leaving the eastern provinces of Rome in disarray. Around this time, Quintus Labienus, who had lived among the Parthians for several years, approached King Orodes II and encouraged him to invade Roman territory. Labienus described the chaos among the Romans and promised that, with a Parthian army at his command, he could conquer all of Rome's eastern provinces in the king's name. Orodes II agreed, mustering a force under the joint command of his son Pacorus and Labienus. From their capital at Ctesiphon, the Parthians marched forth to invade Syria, setting the stage for yet another chapter of conflict. Though this chapter has concluded, there is still much more to tell about the First Roman-Parthian War. So be sure to subscribe to stay updated on future episodes of this series.